Welcome to the Roadmap to Creating Tours webinar. Okay, my name is Mandy Davis, and I'm a preschool teacher here at Balswan, and I've been here for 5 years. We want to welcome our friends from Creative Options, Norwood, and Fremont County, Johanna and Phil, if they're there, and then thank you for joining us. Thank you also to Johanna for sending the meeting invitation and working with ReadyTalk. That's very helpful. Your presenters today for our webinar, Roadmaps to Creating Tours, will be myself, Dee Gilmore, and Patty Willardson. Diane Kirkwood also contributed to this webinar. We are members of a webinar subcommittee on the Pyramid Plus implementation leadership team here at Balswan. Okay. Our agenda for today includes the rationale for providing tours, the objectives for the webinar, the meat of the webinar, followed by a group discussion to share your experiences, evaluations, and an imaginary group happy hour.
Hi, my name is Dee Gilmore. I'm a pre-kindergarten teacher, and I've been at Balswan for 16 years. We've divided our objectives into 3 sections. Part 1 includes planning the tour. Before we begin giving tours, our goals were to create a responsive tour policy and to discuss the many different purposes of our visitors. We felt that a policy is important in order to have a standard that we can consistently be communicated and followed. Look at handout 1. After this discussion, I decided to offer each group a tour menu. So if you can look at handout 2, menus returned. We will communicate back later to further and individualize the tour. Last step is to plan.
Hey, Johanna.
Our objectives for part 2 of our webinar will be to share with you a sample of the packet materials that we give everyone. We've included a few handouts from Norwood to share with their permission. Thank you, Norwood. We also will be describing how we plan the flow of the tour. The final section will include how we summarize the data from the tour, evaluations, and the follow-up with our visitors.
Hey, this is Patty. I'm going to finish up with the webinar this afternoon, and there's a lot of information here, so please stop me if you have a hard time following it. There are 32 handouts. I'm hoping that maybe you had a chance to copy them before the webinar, so it might be a little easier to follow along. All right, so why do we want to give tours, and how can we use our time to share our knowledge and experience with others? So we think that there are many ways to share these practices with others. We can work together with families in your center. There's rollouts in the community, positive solutions for family classes, talking to your early childhood councils, and participating in local early childhood seminars. But one of the opportunities that we think has the highest impact is the intentional hosting of visitors whose purpose is to see your practices in action. When we plan tours, our goals are to value the participants' time, to make the experience meaningful, and to expose people to fidelity in pyramid practices and the outcomes when that occurs consistently throughout the center. Thank you. So who are these visitors? One of the groups we've had the opportunity to host are state and federal level funders for Pyramid Plus. For these people, it's an honor and a blessing to demonstrate the outcomes of what their support has funded. State and federal financial decision-making holds a lot of power and responsibility, and I believe that there are many times that people agree to fund one entity or another, yet how many are actually able to observe outcomes? The people that have been here that have done that have seemed really filled by it. Another group of tour visitors that seen the practices in action impacts to a great degree are those teachers who are considering adding Pyramid Plus practices to their toolbox. However, for many of these folks, there's one person who's working hard to influence their peers to invest their time and energy and money into these practices. And many of these folks are heard to say, oh, no, not one more thing. So this is when showing the outcomes is worth more than that 1,000 words. When teachers begin to see the difference between putting out fires all day and actually having the time to follow their passion, which is to teach children, all are guaranteed to buy in without anything else needed except for admin support to get started. For both of these types of groups, which can be up to 10 people,
On Thursday.
or more, but we prefer 10 at the most, we break into groups of 2 to 3 with a Balswan facilitator. It's helpful to have the facilitator point out specific Pyramid Plus practices that the teachers are using. We usually wait until the debrief part to answer questions so that we will not disturb the children and the teachers too much. So let's look at an example of the tour menu, which is handout 2. And this is the next slide. So, that's the tour menu? Yeah. All right. The purpose for creating this option was that we found many different discussions that the visitors wanted to have in addition to observation. When they have an idea of what these needs are ahead of time, we can plan for the right people to participate. It also helps plan the visit when our guests have an idea ahead of time how much time each activity and discussion will take. That way, they will understand that if they only have an hour, they will not be able to see all that we have to offer. We want to do all that we can to support visitors in having clear and reasonable expectations for their visit. As soon as we receive the request, then we mail them the menu. After the visitors return the menu, we can discuss their needs and further refine the tour. Then we prepare the schedule with our staff, and that part's tricky. We don't want to interrupt our teachers' normal flow of the day, and yet we want our visitors to be able to observe the routines they've come to see. We have each teacher's schedule in our tour planning file so that we can plan the flow for each group. We also always have a plan B in mind. Usually something unplanned happens. People arrive late. Teachers who are on our schedule get sick. Unplanned fire drills have occurred in the middle of tours, probably like at your centers too. So, next slide. These are the packet materials that we've created. The first thing I always put in the packet is the evaluation, and we have several different observation surveys depending on the purpose of the tour, and these are your handouts 3 through 7. Before our guests arrive, I select the survey that will match more closely to their purposes. Some visitors are teachers. Other positions are not in a classroom. Some folks have had pyramid training. Others are just beginning to plan their training. So we want people thinking ahead to purposely observe what they will be evaluating. So that's why we begin with the end in mind. The next 2 handouts, pages 8 and 9, are tippy toe and teapot related to specific practices that I want the visitors to notice. Handout 8 is for observation in toddler rooms. They are skills on the tippy toes as well as specific relationship and environmental strategies learned during Pyramid Plus trainings. Handout 9 is similar, geared towards observers in preschool or pre-K rooms with strategies on the teapot. Handout 10 lists outcomes that we've noticed as a result of using pyramid practices consistently and with fidelity throughout our center. And handout 11 and 12 are observation guidelines from Norwood. Is anyone there from Norwood that wants to talk about that handout?
I'm here. This is Heather.
Oh, hi, Heather.
Hi.
Do you want to talk about that handout? I don't know if people are looking at it or not.
Which one is that one, Patty?
It says it's number 10. No, that's not 10. It's 11 and 12, and let me tell you which one it is.
Okay.
It's your observation guidelines.
So the observation guidelines are, the staff and I came up with just guidelines for, just really trying to keep the observation just really seamless and not distract, the teachers. In our handout, it does say, like to keep, not to interact so much with the kids, but, the teachers don't mind. I think they were just really hesitant at first that it would take away what they were teaching and what they were doing then at the moment. I'm trying to think of what else is on there.
Well, let's see. It says pretty much just tells the people who are going to be observing what your expectations are.
And we want them to feel comfortable and, make themselves at home. And, we give them a tour of the whole center, and that's infants and toddlers included. And then, let them know, where the kitchen is and cups are. And, because when I go visit a center, I want that same feeling like, you belong here and, you're welcome here.
Great.
That's important.
That's great. Do people have the handouts with them?
Yes.
Okay, so you guys have, Norwood, you're having the handouts from this webinar with you right now?
Yes.
Okay, and Creative Options, Fremont, do y'all have the handouts in front of you today?
Yes.
Yeah,
we have ours.
Oh, cool. Okay, hopefully that'll make this next dry section a little easier to follow. The next set of handouts are, this is still packet materials, they're numbers 13 through 27. There's a lot of them, and I used our Memorandum of Understanding that we signed with Pyramid Plus to create these, as well as our benchmarks of quality. So I might be referring to those as we go through. But they are also the result of feedback received during our first year of tours, in addition to the MOU and the benchmarks. So handouts 13 to 15 describe the program, and they include our history, which is required in the MOU Section 8 under Site Tours. Included is the leadership team mission and purpose, and these guidelines were developed from the MOU Section 5 leadership team requirements and benchmarks of quality, establishing a leadership team, benchmark number 4, and also the conference we attended as a leadership team in Frisco in 2010. And the last section of our program description briefly describes our philosophy. And we have agreed as a staff to really walk the Pyramid Plus talk. We believe and agree in this, and we have the power to create the kind of culture together in which we all want to work and grow. So to meet that end, we've invested time as a staff into creating core values. We've trained on reflective listening with our families and peers. And we have a process for conflict resolution that begins by focusing on building or rebuilding relationships. We also trained on a book called The 4 Agreements by Michael Ruiz. And we've all signed contracts that we agree to those 4 agreements, which is that we will be impeccable with our word and not gossip. We will seek to understand our peers and families rather than take things personally. We're going to ask questions rather than make assumptions, and we're going to agree to excellence, understanding that that changes from day to day depending how you feel, what's going on in your home life, all kinds of stresses that we come into the building with. So as a result of focusing on our culture and our relationships, we have begun to feel safe and respected with our peers, and that helps us feel safe to confront situations that bring conflict, because I know most of us are caregivers and we really don't like conflict. So often we just kind of bottle it up and move forward. But we now agree that every conflict brings a learning opportunity, and we are building trust with each other to be brave enough and honest and gentle enough to talk with our coworkers about our needs and concerns. And that really, I think, has made a really huge difference in our center here. Oops, sorry about that phone. So, handout 16 chronicles the Pyramid Plus implementation history, 2005 to 2010. Now we're working on training new staff, maintaining fidelity, like you all are probably, and sustainability and scale up. Let's see. Oh, handout 17 through 19 are just frequently asked questions, and we just found that some folks need answers to these basic factual questions about a center in order to really focus on practices. So we let people know those answers are available. 20 to 24 are center policies, and they, again, were created as required by the MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, that all sites need to develop a written pro-inclusion and no expulsion policy, and each site is also required to include information on Pyramid Plus approach in our employee handbook. So these are also in the packet and also in the handbook. So 20 to 24 meet the MOU requirements that all sites must have a written protocol and procedures for development and implementation of behavior support plans. And these policies meet those requirements. But I've also been super thankful that Pyramid Plus did encourage us to define a policy for challenging behavior, because I don't know how it is at your centers, but here most teachers really don't pay a lot of attention to this policy until the day they have a child who presents with challenging behavior, and then they're running in asking, what is it we're supposed to do? That's cool, because the policy is right here. We can refer to it and go over it together. And we remind everyone that we always go back to relationships and check on our Pyramid Plus practices at each level of the pyramid before moving up to even collecting data. While moving through these steps, often the teachers even make the changes or little tweaks that take care of the behavior anyway. So always good to remember that changing children's behavior depends on changing adult practices. So really benefited from having this policy in our handbook, as well as letting people share it if they want to when they come to visit. Handouts 25 through 27, that's some data handouts. We give those to people who have indicated interest on the tour menu to understand how we have set up our data systems to drive our planning and record outcomes for Pyramid Plus implementation. Included are child, teacher, and center-wide data outcomes for these practices. And last, yay, finally from this part, we've included another Norwood handout, which is prevalence data. And that's just in case anyone needs more reason to implement specific teaching of social emotional skills to young children through Pyramid Plus training after they've visited. So that's the packet stuff. Yay, that's done. How about the next slide? Okay, the flow. All right. The flow, what we do when the tour happens here. So first of all, we're going to come in and we're going to welcome everybody. A few of us went over to Creative Options. It's similar to what you guys do. Have a really nicely set up room and treats and coffee, and people just kind of sit around and begin to chat. We meet the facilitator that they're going to be going with, which you guys did also. We give them a schedule, which has been prepared and individualized to meet their requests. We give them the packet and kind of look at it a little bit. We explain what they want to observe as far as the teapot or the tippy toes. We call out attention to those particular handouts so that they'll kind of be looking for these strategies in the classrooms, as well as having the facilitator point them out. And we give them a schedule for the rest of the day. After the observations, we can return to the meeting room. And now it's time for reflection. So we ask questions. We ask them to share their observations and thoughts. We ask them, did you see what you expected to observe, or what were you surprised by? What was missing? What did you see that excited you for opportunities in your workplace? And then we again ask each participant to complete our observation survey. That's really when a lot of the questions come up, and people are using each other's observations to think about something that they might have seen, and that's a really fun time together. So we also extend their learning with why these practices are implemented, and we share with others what guests have observed. We're trying to build on the observations, including the rationale for the practices. So we're continuing to create the backdrop for why teachers implement practices and rationale for why visitors observe success. Occasionally, if the visitors have time, we invite them to stay for lunch, and that's a really fun thing, and we found that to be super beneficial. So we treat them and our teachers so that they can have time to talk to the teachers that they actually observed. And that can be a really rich conversation and very personal. So the next slide is about data. My doctor says my hair loss is caused by me worrying about data loss. They recognize that guy? Well, we do, after people leave, we look at our surveys. We respond by changing our packets if needed, and we send it off to Pyramid Plus. And then the next slide, Johanna. So then we email or call our visitors within a couple of weeks. We really want to thank them for coming. We want to forward any resources they may have requested. We want to ask if there are more questions and invite them to return or let others know we're available. So that is it. So the next slide, Johanna. All right, so here is the chance for everybody else to talk. So did you have questions about that? What do you guys want to talk about?
Hey, this is Ben from Creative Options.
Hi, Ben.
Hey, we loved your packet, and I love the idea of having the teachers talk with the staff or with the visitors. I think that's really, really impactful. So that's very cool, and I like how you individualize for the people coming in. Nice stuff.
Thank you.
Hey, Patty, it's Chris.
Hi, Chris.
I just want to say you guys are awesome.
Oh, Chris. Well, thank you. We want to come down and visit you, too, because I know you guys are also.
Oh, this packet is great. I mean, we're just started thinking about the whole touring process, so all of this work that you guys have put in is really going to help us out a bunch. Thank you.
You are welcome. You are welcome. We're happy just to spread as much as we can.
Hey, this is Ben again.
Hi, Ben again.
Sorry again. I had a question. Like you said, they were looking at things for the teapot. Are they looking on like individual class, like this classroom is working on this teapot indicator, or are they just looking at in general specific things from the teapot, or how does that work?
Well, do you have the handout?
Yeah.
Okay, so what we're going to do there is with your facilitator, when the visitors see these type of practices in the room, the facilitator will say, okay, well, you see why they have that circle time board, which I know everybody has, a routine within a routine? The reason for that is, so that third point, that children will be able to answer the 4 questions. So they're kind of trying to point out these practices because a lot of people come in and they observe and they really don't know what to look for. So having this handout there is really helpful.
Okay.
That make sense?
Yeah, I just didn't know if it was like there was like the teapot slide way in the back, and I thought that's what you were talking about, but you're talking about the one like page 9 or something?
Yeah, page 9 is the teapot, and then page 8 is for the tippy toes for the toddler classroom.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Yeah. Let's see what the next slide is, Johanna. Oh, now it's time for everybody to go to happy hour.
Thank you, Patty, Dee, and Mandy. You guys did a fantastic job.